So my story begins in 1964. The Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. Raise your hand if you remember. Let me tell you, all the girls in my 7th grade class were in love with the Beatles. So I get this idea to impress Sherry Scheinfeld, the heartthrob of number 8 school in my hometown of Rochester, New York. I decide to come to school wearing a Beatles wig. She wasn't impressed. I'm not even sure she noticed me. I thought, I know how she'll notice me. I'll be the first one in 7th grade to play an instrument like the Beatles play. So I go home and announce to my parents, I want to play the drums. That's not a good idea, they tell me. Your brother Sid plays the drums and you'll just end up fighting over the drum set. All right, that makes sense. How about the electric guitar? No, your 87-year-old grandfather lives with us, and that might just be too loud. All right, that makes sense. A saxophone. Jazz is cool. How about saxophone? No, you're going to need braces, and you won't be able to play the saxophone once you get braces. And it seemed no matter what instrument I would suggest, they had a suggestion all their own. Hey, why don't you play the accordion? The accordion? You gotta be kidding. What self-respecting teenager in the 1960s would want to play an instrument that's trying to impress women, no doubt, would want to play an instrument associated with Lawrence Welk, the Jolly Fat Dutchman, and the Ted Mack Amateur Hour? But finally, after going through every instrument in the orchestra and them giving me an excuse, I gave up. All right, I'll play the accordion. Great, my father said, I've got one in the basement for you. Unbeknownst to me, my father had been secretly taking accordion lessons. Now that should have been my first clue about how uncool the instrument would be, like you gotta take lessons secretly. But unfortunately for his musical career and mine, he had slipped on the ice around and dislocating a shoulder, breaking a wrist. That was the end of his accordion lessons. But he had to pawn off that secondhand accordion he had purchased on somebody. That somebody was me, and that's the day I became an accordionist. Trust me, Sherry Scheinfeld was not impressed. On the other hand, her mother and grandmother were. So, kind of despite this disability, to attract women of my age, I set out on this mission to make the accordion cool. And I noticed my teacher, Joe Alessi. That's a great name for an accordion player, right? Joe Alessi, hell of a lot better than Abe Goldstien, Anyways, Joe had this sleek-looking black accordion, and he had these letters mounted on the front plate. They were these big chrome letters, Old English typeface. I can still see it now. It said, Joe. But what it really said was, I'm Joe, I play the accordion, don't mess with me. That was like accordion pride. That was cool. So, of course, I rush off to the hardware store. But all I could afford were those, crack and peel stickers you put on your mailbox. I got ABE. Put them on the front of my baby blue accordion, because that's the color accordion my father got at the second-hand shop. All mine said was, hi, I'm Abe, I play the accordion, make fun of me. Then I started thinking, girls like guys in bands. I'll join a band. Except the only one forming a band in my 8th grade was a clarinet player, Chucky Goldman. And he needed a band to play for his grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary, to be held at the Jewish War Veterans Hall. Not exactly the biggest venue in town. And not really hip either, but our repertoire wasn't that hip either. This was the first band I was in, and the first songs I learned to play in that band, a waltz, the anniversary waltz, of course, foxtrots, Sentimental Journey, cha-chas, T for Two, and of course, Hava Nagila. All right, Our song selection is not cool. The instrument I play is not cool. If we had a cool name, that might tip the scales in my balance. Except Chucky already had a name picked out, even had music stands made with it. The Noble Four. This is the mid-'60s. Bands like the Yardbirds, the Stones, the Kinks, the Ventures, the Animals, and I'm playing in a band called the Noble Four. All right, well, listen, despite the repertoire and the name, we actually became really, really popular, well, among our parents and their friends. I mean, every weekend we were playing for their anniversary parties or their birthday parties or their social events or their country club dances, and, of course, the highlights of the year for their temple's Purim and Hanukkah parties. About the only time we played for people our own age was our junior prom. That was simply because we couldn't afford a band. But hey, I did have a date that night, not that the accordion did me any good. Because when you play accordion in a quartet that doesn't have a bass player or a guitar player, you're keeping the bass lines going on this side and you're keeping all the accompaniment going on this side. So it was easy for Chucky, the clarinet player, to step off the bandstand, dance with his date. Trumpet player could get off the bandstand, dance with his date. I mean, even the drummer could get off the bandstand because I keep the rhythms going in my left hand. I had to sit there, and my date just stood there. And I'm sure if someone came up to her, she didn't say with a glisten in her eye, "I'm with the accordion player." You know what? I'm pretty sure she didn't, because the next year for our senior ball, when we actually had money for a band, she asked the drummer to be her date. Now, that would be devastating to most young men. But when you're an accordion player, especially in the late 1960s, you learn how to deal with rejection. All right, college. College will be better. So I pack up my accordion and head to Drake University. Now, I know it's hard to believe, but I wasn't as hip-looking then as I am now. I mean, I was this overweight Orthodox Jewish kid from Rochester, New York, with an accordion. And my roommate walks in. I mean, he was a hippie. I mean, this is fall of 1969. I mean, the leather sandals, the jeans, the leather coat, the hair, the beard. And the first thing he says to me, in only a way a hippie can say it, "Hey, man, is it cool if I have MDA in the room?" Now, I had no idea what MDA was. And from the reaction, you don't either. Which is a good thing, but we'll get to that. But he says, "Do you mind if I have MDA in the room?" I didn't know what MDA was, so my only response was, "Yeah, I guess it's okay. You got any problems with the accordion?" MDA, for you clean living people, obviously, MDA was a hallucinogenic drug, more powerful than LSD, which I would suspect he had to take a lot of whenever I wanted to play the accordion. So here's kind of the sad story here about being a 20-year-old dance band accordionist in 1969. I mean, we're talking to Woodstock Nation, Flower Child, all of this stuff. Because while all my friends were enjoying sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I was still doing polkas, cha-chas, and foxtrots, playing all over Iowa with the Don Hoy orchestras or the Ralph Zarno bands. And then there were, of course, strolling gigs, like the bane of every accordion. It's like strolling around while people are eating, right? Yeah. So there were strolling gigs at country clubs when they had their French or Italian-themed dinners, because, of course, those are the only nationalities that play accordions, you know. And then, of course, there were my annual appearances on radio and TV for Accordion Awareness Month. Yeah. Think about that. Not appreciation, awareness. I mean, they usually save awareness for diseases, right? Cancer Awareness Month, Diabetes Awareness Month, Heart Disease Awareness Month, Accordion Awareness Month. But hey, you know, you just learn to live with that. So now I think it's obvious that accordions just don't get any respect. I mean, we'll never be a cool instrument. We never were. I mean, think about it. Name one sex symbol who ever played accordion. I mean, you can't gyrate your hips when you're strapped into this 25-pound behemoth, and you can't play with your shirt unbuttoned, right? Because no one's going to see your chest. And second of all, if you have hair on your chest, I know from example, it hurts. And then there's the things they call this instrument. The stomach Steinway, boy, that sounds real professional. The belly Baldwin, or the worst name of all, you know it, the squeeze box. Oh, God, I hate that. And then there's the jokes, like what's the definition of a gentleman? Well, someone who knows how to play the accordion but doesn't. Yeah. What's the definition of an optimist? Simple, an accordion player with an agent. Or, what's the difference between an accordion and a trampoline? I mean, this one's obvious. Well, you take off your shoes when you jump on a trampoline. Well, by now you know what side of this underdog champion flip that I represent. Because there's no doubt about it, in the world of musical instruments, even below banjo and bagpipe is the accordion. And anyone who chooses to play it or has been chosen to play it like me has to relegate themselves to the fact that they're going to live their life as an underdog. But, well, you know, my life really hasn't been that bad. I mean, let's think about it. Maybe the accordion is a champion. It's definitely been my champion. I mean, ever since I was strapped into this thing at age 12, it's defined me. I mean, it made me who I am today, and I can't imagine my life without the accordion being strapped on. I mean, it taught me some valuable lessons. I'll borrow from you, EJ, right? Lesson number 1. It taught me that rather than shying away from being different, to embrace it, well, literally in this case, and celebrate it at every chance you get. Number 2, it taught me that it's cooler to be yourself than it is trying to be cool. Number 3, it taught me never to take life too serious. I mean, what better for a self-deprecating Jew like me than a self-deprecating instrument like the, come on, I know you want to say it. Not a squeeze box. Come on, get it out, the squeeze box, right. Oh, jeez. Now, you know, I'm not sure my parents had all of this in mind when they were suggesting the accordion. I mean, for my father, it was just a way to recoup that $10 he spent at a secondhand store for a baby blue accordion, okay? And for my mother, she just wanted someone around the house that she could say, hey, could you play this Yiddish tune I remember from my childhood? But maybe, just maybe, my parents realized that a chubby Orthodox Jewish kid named Abe Goldstien doesn't have a chance in hell of ever being cool. So why not saddle him with the uncoolest instrument at an early age? Well, whatever the reason, thanks to their suggestion, I not only managed to squeeze out a pretty good living all through high school and college, maybe in my retirement years, but more importantly, I've managed to squeeze out a life I'm proud to call all my own. Thank you.